things that have surprised us, Jon Mackenzie, probably best to start with Arsenal. And I think it's fair to say we all expected Arsenal to be good this season off the back of strong performances towards the end of last season. It's a surprise that they're top at Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely. I was not expecting this at all. And I am someone who's come from a point where I was quite critical of what Arteta was doing at Arsenal. And I suppose it really shows the benefit of having a long-term vision, having a long-term plan as well, because I think that's where it's come from, right? They've not only have they brought in better players to suit their system, but they have that system that we've talked about loads on this channel, which is allowing them flexibility to solve problems that different oppositions are sending their way. So we were talking at the beginning of the season about them being probable contenders for the Champions League, and we've got not quite midway through the season, but a big chunk of the way through the season, and now we are having to talk about whether or not they have the ability to win the league, which is, I think, a bit of a surprise for all of us.
In terms of what criticisms you had of Arteta last season or earlier than that, what is it that he has done to adjust your perspective, other than obviously the results?
Yeah, I mean, I think last season was when I started believing, mainly because the off-ball stuff was really good. They started having the ability to control games against different kinds of opponents, which I think is a really important tool to have if you're going to be a dominant side, an elite side. You have to be able to have different game plans for these different opponents. And then that obviously culminated in the end of last season with them starting to put together a lot of interesting ideas in possession. So we started seeing Arteta starting to invert his fullbacks, having different combinations of players in the build-up phase, which allows different approaches to opponents, and that's just got better and better since probably around the beginning of this calendar year. And now this season they've added Zinchenko, so it gives them the ability to invert on that side. They've got Ben White playing as right back, which has made a huge difference. They brought in William Saliba, which facilitated that, and he's been.
Is there an argument to say he's been maybe one of their best players?
Yeah, for sure. And probably argument to be made that he has been one of the best defenders in the Premier League this season as well. And obviously Gabriel Jesus gives them so much more flexibility and creativity in the forward area, which I think is important, because I think as soon as you become a team who can control games, teams are going to be much more likely to sit deeper, and so you need to have that sort of creative player to get more out of those sorts of low blocks. Honourable mentions for, I think, Gabriel Martinelli has been good this season. Bukayo Saka we knew was good already as well, but again the system just facilitates them to be able to do different things depending on how other teams set up. So you can have situations where they are doing the sort of standard touchline hugging, pinning, but there's also, because there's this ability to play a lot narrower in build-up, they can create space in the wide areas around those two as well. And again, it's these are all sorts of facets that add to this ability to problem solve, which makes them so dangerous. So,
Seb, I believe I'm right in saying that at this point in the season, they're at a stage, or they're at a place where no team has ever reached before and not then won the league. Why does it still feel as though Man City are going to triumph in the second half of the season?
Is that true? I mean, even Keegan's Newcastle? Is that?
I think so. I think no team has had this number of points after this number of games and been top at this stage, and then hasn't gone on to win that season.
Well, I guess it feels that way just because Manchester City have redefined what it is to be redefined what's acceptable. What's an acceptable standard for a title contender to maintain over the course of a year? I think if you look over the last sort of 10 years, every time a team contending for the title has dropped points, not just in defeat, but if they've had an away draw, it's treated like a tragedy. And I think that describes just how thin the margins are at the top. And I think, not unreasonably, I think people are still mindful of what happened last season, in the sense that injuries really hurt Arsenal. I mean, one of the differences this season has been that they've bought really well, but also bought really well for the right positions. And if you look back from about sort of April, May onwards, and the team having to include Tavares, a left back, they lost Thomas Partey as well, which is a big problem. Alexander Lacazette was kind of not really a feast or famine player, but he was someone who one part of his game was okay. He was a facilitating forward, but not in the same way or to the same level that Gabriel Jesus was. And so you had a situation where you either put the 11 best players on the pitch, or it all went wrong, or it was, not went wrong. It's a bit melodramatic.
Sure.
But I think when you've had such a bad experience, it's so it's not that far in the past, and you have a team like Manchester City chasing you, I think that conspires to create the perception that you can't make any mistakes whatsoever.
Yeah.
Which is not really true. I don't think that's really fair on Arsenal, because
Man City dropped points this weekend.
Yeah, but also if you look back at what's worked for Arsenal this year, like we can talk about the tactics, talk about Arteta, but I think resiliency is one of them. That game at Old Trafford where they played really well against Man United because they got beaten. I think in previous seasons that hurts Arsenal in a way that it didn't this year, and they're able to come back and maintain their rhythm and the momentum.
Bouncing straight back from that was a big
100%.
deal, wasn't
It was a huge moment in their season. So I think it's based on what Arsenal used to be, what we know Man City to be, what we perhaps expect Man City to do in the transfer market in January, maybe. Yeah. And yeah, all of those things add up to this idea that just leading at this time of the season just isn't quite enough. So it's tricky.
Speaking of January JJ, we talked at January JJ, who's very different from December and November JJ.
Yeah.
Very morose, macabre character.
Definitely a different person, yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of January, we talked about Gabriel Jesus last week, and I saw some suggestions over the week that, obviously there's a January transfer window. If you were Mikel Arteta at the moment, would you consider trying to double down on the early season success and trying to get
buy more players,
buy another forward, maybe buy some extra goals? I mean, would you do that, or would you risk? I suppose in doing that you risk squad harmony, don't you? Hard to know what the right thing to do is.
I think you can compare it to like Keegan's Newcastle. He brought in Asprilla and it went all wrong for them there. But I think what they would do is find someone who can finish chances in a different sort of way, a different profile player to Jesus. So obviously you want to not disrupt the squad harmony and what you've got going on there, but adding in someone else who then takes you to a different level is good. So you can bring in a player who's not a squad player, you bring in a player who's a first team player, and give you real competition for places there, and then Jesus probably ends up playing wide like he did at City.
Who's that?
Running through the middle. There's a few strikers they could, it depends who's available in the market. Osimhen, no, I don't think he's right. No, I wouldn't say him. I would say they would go for a player who's technically good. Someone like Benjamin Sesko, who they wouldn't get now because he's going to Leipzig, I think, isn't he? He's at Salzburg now. Some of these, I think you go for someone young as well, so it can be part of this the age profile that you're going for.
Cristiano Ronaldo.
I think probably not him.
No,
he's too not him. There are some other players I can't think of the top of my head. Who would I sign as a Football Manager? Probably like someone like Sesko is probably what you do. Or like Makoko at Dortmund.
Well, you said you find someone to score goals in a different way. Is it possible if they signed a goalkeeper that player could carry it in?
Yes. So they want to have a goalie who can dribble a lot. So it's like when you're playing Pro Evo at university, and if you score with a goalkeeper, then the person you're playing against has to consume their drink.
They should sign Michael Jordan.
Yes,
yeah,
that's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. But yes, they should definitely do that. It could spur them on. It's the thing that they've got. It's not into Spurs, so they won't like that, will they? Yeah, I remember like Aberdeen were pushing Celtic once for the league. Genuinely, about maybe in 2013-14, whatever year we didn't obviously win it, but won the League Cup.
Pushing
and the argument that a lot of fans made about Aberdeen was that they should have invested in the transfer market then to really gone big, so that was the chance to get it. Actually, there was never really a chance of us winning the league. Celtic were always going to win it. And spending that money now, or at the time, would have been just a bad use of resources that you could then use to keep your squad better. But isn't the whole point of it?
A kind bedfellow.
Well, the whole point is to be competitive, right? And Arsenal have a chance to win the league, so if they can get someone available in the market who they could buy. I don't know who would sell in January for the sort of money that Arsenal would have.
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah, he's available probably, yeah. At least something to do.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including David Ornstein, Daniel Taylor, Ollie Kay, Amy Lawrence and Rafa Honigstein. There are journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.